Avdiivka, the hottest place on the front lines, and Russia decided really to go all in from the northern direction. For the last couple of days they were quite successful in this sector, but finally Ukraine gathered some of the reinforcements and was able to stop the Russian advancement, even capturing some of the Russian soldiers near to this lake. Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go to Avdiivka once again and let's check the timeline. What happened after 3 days of the Russian constant attack from Ruzzia? I'm actually quite surprised about this attack. Later on I'm gonna tell you why. So they moved quite a lot, reaching this ground near to the lake. Today they advanced even to the town itself, capturing a couple of the streets. But still they are behind this railroad. I know why, but the city is overexposed as for me. So here we have the factory. Here is the central part of the city, here is Dachi, which Russia occupied, and here is the part of the town. I guess that this map shows the town in a better way, but they don't have the recent update. According to the recent update, Russia occupied all of this territory close to the lake. As I told you, Ukraine has a counterattack vector. The fighting is happening in the urban environment close to the lake, and there is the fighting zone in the south as well. Russia tries to move to Avdiivka from this direction and this one. Some of the sources say that Ukraine start to withdraw the forces from this part just to avoid being encircled by the Russian forces. However, it is hard to confirm that information. I wasn't able to find reliable sources stating that this information is correct. What we know for sure that Russia concentrated as many forces as possible in this region, and their goal is to occupy Avdiivka till president's elections in Russia that will start in the middle of March. And Russians do not care of how many losses they would have potentially. Thousands of soldiers, thousands of officers, doesn't matter. If we look more precisely at the latest Russian advancements, for example near to Avdiivka or in any other point, you'll see that they are in lack of the BMPs, so fighting infantry vehicles. They use MTLBs for that, which are not actually fighting vehicles, but Russia uses those for this particular purpose. Those were developed to tow something on the front lines or close to the front lines. They do not have robust armor. The armor of the vehicle could be penetrated by, for example, PKM machine gun, Kalashnikov machine gun. But Russia has to use those tow vehicles because they're in lack of BMPs. They put some of the machine guns on the top, they put some of the cages, so it's like a Mad Max style. So this is MTLB, this is MTLB, 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 and this one also. Those are damn cheap vehicles. We saw how Russia used those as the kamikaze vehicles. They put some of the mines and even aviation bombs inside and send those to the Ukrainian positions. In most of the cases, it's very easy to stop this kind of the vehicle, again because of the light armor. Yes, the standard Kalashnikov rifle is unable to do a harm for this vehicle, but again, heavy machine gun, RPG, everything could be used against those vehicles and stop them immediately, not even telling about the FPV drones. A single drone strike is enough to stop those vehicles too. And obviously Russian soldiers are not feeling protected inside. That's why sometimes we may see them on the top. For them it's easier sometimes just to drop off the vehicle than to burn inside. And here you may see how Russians put the anti-aircraft gun on the top, which also could be used to the ground operation against our infantry or our vehicles. On this one we may see the anti-drone cage and some of the sandbags on the top to reinforce the weak armor of the vehicle. But it looks like that it didn't help. Some of the Western media sources also confirmed that information that Russia has significant losses in their vehicles. They're unable to produce the new vehicles as fast as they lose those. That is why we witness many of the T-55, T-62 tanks and also MTLBs, which aren't supposed to be used as the infantry fighting vehicles. This issue with the Russian assault vehicles creates new spike of the losses for the Russian army. By the way, yesterday Russia lost one more T-62 very old tank, so they use them as tanks and they're not effective. Also, they have 4 crew members inside for those old tanks instead of 3 crew members like in T-72, so that also creates more losses for the Russian army. Let's go to the 3D map and check the Russian advancement in the new sector over here. So I'm quite surprised because the terrain here is quite difficult. So here we go with a natural obstacle. The ground is very low. It's like a valley with a river, but Russians managed to cope with it and they took control over this, I would say, island. Why am I saying so? Because it is surrounded by lakes and river, and there's just a single place where it is connected to the town itself. It's over here, I hope you can see. So after Russians took this territory under their control, it would be very hard to get rid of them in the future. For example, it's like a fortress. So I'm definitely surprised about their advancement. I thought it would be very slow because the terrain here is very difficult for advancement, but in this sector they use mostly infantry forces and just randomly some of the vehicles. That's it. Also, I spoke with one of my mates who is not far from Avdiivka. He says that the weather deteriorates and sometimes we have fog out there, sometimes rainy, quite a nasty weather, so Ukraine is unable to use the drones sometimes. That is why probably Russia used these bad weather conditions to advance from this side. Also, firstly, they started the attack from this place using lots of the forces and vehicles, but just a few hours later they started the advancement from this side. So Ukraine sent more forces to conquer this Russian advancement and just a few forces to conquer this advancement. That's why this one was more successful, let's say. Unfortunately, not having the robust defense lines may lead to this scenario, and Russia has all the chances to occupy Avdiivka also, unfortunately. Now I would say that the situation in Avdiivka is critical. It's not my personal mark, it's the mark from our military command as well. And in next months it will be go no go for Avdiivka, whether Russia is able to occupy it or not. Hopefully not. But the Russian gloves are closer and closer around the town. The good thing that still the main supply road is under Ukrainian control. It connects Orlivka and Avdiivka. But here Russians are very close to cut this road. What might change situation for Ukraine is using lots of the drones. From what I see, our volunteers are concentrated on supplying 110th and 109th brigades, which are now fighting in Avdiivka. Mostly all of the drones nowadays are being sent to Avdiivka. We are in lack of the resources from our main ally, the United States of America, so this critical situation in Avdiivka obviously will turn some of the looks also from the United States politics, and many of the Republicans say that they need to support Ukraine right here, right now, otherwise Ukraine will lose many more territories, including Avdiivka and other towns or maybe even cities. Democrats obviously support that too, but there's a group of Republicans called MAGA, which are under the Trump control. Those are just act as the sabotage group in the United States Senate, completely blocking the support of Ukraine. That's why drones are very critical. Drones are more precise compared to artillery. You may target the moving targets as well with the same artillery shell that you might have used in artillery system, and there is the question whether it hits the target or not, but with drone you may fly directly hitting that target. Obviously there are some obstacles in using the FPV drones, for example bad weather or the Russian electronic warfare. In those cases we need artillery, but for artillery systems we need many more artillery shells, which we do not have because the United States are not sending those to Ukraine. And what we have from our other allies is not okay. So without the help from the United States of America, for sure Ukraine will start to lose the ground all around the front lines. President Zelensky also recently said about it. But still, even in those kind of the terrible conditions, Ukraine managed to get the ground over here, not far away from Avdiivka, by the way, near to Nevelsk. Russia advanced here recently, but Ukraine was able to cut this Russian attack and return the ground back. Awesome. I read some of the analytics on X and they confirmed that the visibility dropped today, so Ukraine wasn't able to use drones for some time, and Russia has more artillery systems, more artillery shells, That is why they got superiority in a couple of days over Ukrainian army, and that is why they advanced. And again, some of the source says that Ukraine retreated the forces to the central part of the city. I have no confirmation about it. I don't think that it is true that Russia advanced so rapidly. But we have the confirmation about the big Russian advancement on the northern part of Avdiivka town. And here definitely they are not far away from the supply road, which is critical for Ukraine. You can see that they're already shelling that road with their artillery. If they go there with their infantry forces and with ground forces, I don't know, units, whatever, they would cause Ukraine to leave Avdiivka for sure. There are no more reliable ways of transportation towards that town, unfortunately, especially then the weather is very bad because Ukraine is unable to use field roads as well during the winter campaign. That is why I'm calling the situation in Avdiivka critical. Let's go to the deep state military map once again. It seems like Ukraine has the attack vector on the northern part from Avdiivka, northwest part to be more precise. So it was yesterday and it is today. Russians lost the positions in this field. It is not far away from Stepova, and definitely Ukraine attacks this part. Also, if we check out the Klishivka village, not far away from Bakhmut, by the way, you will see that Russians lost the positions there as well. So it was yesterday and it is today. They retreated a little. And here Ukraine also performed a counterattack. It was confirmed a couple of days ago. So Ukraine managed to get this ground back, expanding the gray area, but according to some of the other sources, Ukraine definitely pushed behind the lakes with the forces establishing the control over this territory. Awesome. About the Kupiansk direction with the main city of Kupiansk, Russia has many of the attack vectors, but for now we do not see the massive advertised Russian attack. No, they concentrated lots of the forces for sure, and probably they're gonna use those after they will try to occupy Avdiivka, maybe in a month or something like that. I believe that it would be very hard for them to advance to Kupiansk. It's not like Avdiivka. They do not have the short supply lines like with Donetsk out there, so they require many more forces for this kind of operation in Kupiansk. I have just received the information that Russia tries to attack Kharkiv once again with their convoys that were demolished, the usual scheme for the Russian advancement. We have the exclusive pictures published by this source. You may find it on Twitter. So just as a reference for you, and I'll zoom in and we'll check that Russia used some of the BTRs even there. They're quite useless during the winter campaign, but on the south it's more or less okay for them to be used because there is no significant mud, let's say, and they can proceed through the field roads. That's what you see out here, but probably it might have even stuck here. Here we see probably the infantry vehicle. It's hard to say, the image is not really great. Yeah, the image quality is not that great, but from what we see, there are destroyed Russian MT-12 artillery systems. And here it's hard to say what was there, probably BMPs or maybe even air defense systems. I think that finally those were the air defense systems. Here's the house in Kharkiv where Russia put their mortar, and our guys spotted the mortar from the drone, and later on they fired some of the bombs to the place from the drone, and this is what happened to that Russian mortar, so it completely destroyed. Here I want to show you how Russian propaganda helps Ukraine to eliminate the Russian artillery. So here is the journalist, let's say, and they are running somewhere on the front lines, obviously on the Russian side, those are the Russian soldiers. She says that they have quite limited time to do something, to fire the shell, let's say, on the Ukrainian positions. She says that the distance towards Ukrainian positions is 30 kilometers, which is more than the precise shelling of this particular artillery system. So they grab the shell, they run, and they fire towards Ukrainian side, saying that they hit everything as well as for Russian propaganda, and they are going somewhere to hide because they do afraid that Ukraine might reply to that particular spot. And Ukraine did reply. What was that? They found us. It was an enemy mine. We have even the review from the Russian military bloggers about the case, and let me show you the English translation. I think it's better for you. So they say that hot visor Kirdik, so it was captured by Ukrainian side. It was spotted because of that single shot that was filmed especially for the Russian propaganda. Well, quite an efficient propaganda, I would say. Russia continued to lose the China-made Golf cars, so one of them was hit by the FPV drone, and you may see that it is total kaput. I want to show you what tools Russia is using to get this picture on their FPV drones. Mostly Ukraine uses the same feature, so to get the night vision for FPV, they use this kind of the small camera. This thermal camera replaces the standard one, that's why those drones are used only during the nighttime operations, and this is the Russian FPV drone standard design. They use alloy frame, which is heavier than carbon fiber in Ukrainian drones, but still they produce them massively with that. Again, very small and capable camera. In Russian shops it costs around $1,322. Exported from China, but obviously Russian factories do have the separate agreement with Chinese production, so probably they have those cameras with some certain discount. So both of the sides are using similar technology as you see, but Russia obviously has more resources, so potentially more of those drones might be used by the Russian side. We have two great news about the Ukrainian F-16 program. First of all, Netherlands say that they will give Ukraine more airplanes, 6 more. And also they will be supplied with quite a long-range missiles with a range of 300 up to 500 kilometers. I believe those could be Taurus. Well, they do not specify the type of the missile, but with that range, I think Taurus or Scalp or Storm Shadow. But probably Taurus because it has the longer range. Also, soon, this February, Ukraine will discuss with Germany the long-term support of Ukraine from the military perspective. Long-term contracts will be signed. For Ukraine, it's better to obtain small help but regularly than big help and occasionally. Again, the deal with F-16s might work only under the United States military support, because all of the spare parts are coming from the United States of America. The maintenance could be done, I think, in Europe. The confirmed number of the airplanes coming from Netherlands is now 24, to be more precise. Meanwhile, Russian commercial aviation is in a deep crisis. The level of serious incidents and accidents rose by 2 times in 2023. Why? Because they're in lack of some of the spare parts. They're now performing the cannibalism of their own airplanes, taking the parts of one airplanes to the others, so they had to ground lots of the Airbuses and Boeings. Also, do you think Russian pilots would just stay in Russia? I think qualified Russian pilots would go to fly elsewhere in United Arab Emirates, Turkey or in Southeast Asia, countries which are still okay with Russian passports and allow Russians to work. And the rest, less qualified personnel, stays in Russia as usual. For this reason, Russian aviation authorities start to block the licenses for the pilots who would like to leave Russia and work outside. By doing so, they want to save the Russian aviation. Crazy. The last serious incident happened to the Russian-made Sukhoi Superjet. It excurted the runway in Saransk airfield of the Russian Federation. Sukhoi Superjet is made in Russia, yes, but mainly the parts are Western-made, including the engines. Here we see the main commander of the Russian supply forces, supply provisions, let's say, for their army in Kaliningrad Oblast. He stayed in a local hotel, drank a little and started to fight with some of the people around, so police was called to get him to the local prison, and he behaved very wildly, kicking officers, you can see over here. So this is the face of the Russian commander, one of the Russian generals, let's say, of supplies. Russia has problems with supplies for sure. Remember, there were some of the riots in Bashkortostan, the Russian Federation, where locals protested against imprisonment of their activists. Well, now Russia jails all of those people who went on protests and whom they were able to identify. So it's just crazy what is happening inside the Russian Federation. It's like North Korea, not more, not less. I subscribe to many of the Russian opposition sources, and they say that many people are missing. Yes, just missing. They are not reported elsewhere. It's just crazy. Today, President Zelensky really in his interview predicted that Russia will break the Ukrainian defense and will not stop if we're not gonna obtain the military support from the United States of America. Well, in fact, it could be like that. For sure, Russia will take more ground. Whether they will be able to occupy all of the Donetsk Oblast, for example, and assault on Kharkiv once again, I'm not sure about it. But from what we see, Speaker Mike Johnson doesn't want to support the initiative about the border control and the support of Ukrainian military. He again says his phrase that the bill will be dead on arrival. Wow. It shows that him, Trump and MAGA are not interested in border or in helping Ukraine. They play Putin's game. Luckily, the part of Republicans do not support this madness, and probably they'll vote for the bill or for this deal. Anyways, we're gonna see it tomorrow. My friends, don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And also, if you want to support my job, you may find some of the links in the video description just below. Special thanks for my Patreon supporters and the sponsors of my YouTube channel. Guys, thank you so much for your awesome help and support. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.